like to call the order of the East Ascension Drainage meeting to order for October the 18th, 2021. Mr. Travis is the only one absent. Mr. Johnny, would you lead us in the invocation followed by the pledge?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gathering. We thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Ascension Parish. Bless this group, bless Ascension Parish and our employees. Guide us in the decisions that we make so they will be in the best interest of all people in Ascension Parish, especially regarding drainage. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we move on, we're going to have to, a little housekeeping, I'm going to move item K to F, and F will follow where K is. Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign in with Ms. Liz.
Say that again, Chair. Are we moving one? What are we moving?
We're going to move under general business K, we're moving it to F, and F will go to follow it. Yeah. Okay, anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign in with Ms. Liz. We'll move on to the acceptance of the minutes of the August 9th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second. Moved by Ms. Terry, second by Mr. Aaron. Approval of September 20th.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Mr. Aaron, second by Mr. Johnny. There'll be no chairman's report, but I'd like to turn it over to the parish president. He has a good update to give.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of the Commission. As you know, my administration and members of the Commission have been working hard to negotiate an operations agreement as it relates to drainage. As stated in the proposed agreement, the Parish of Ascension and the East Ascension Consolidated Gravity District pledge to work together as a team of elected officials who will always place the best interest of the parish and its citizens first. Let's be honest, my administration and members of this commission have differences of opinion. But if we're going to operate as stated in the proposed agreement, we have to respect each other's differences and always work together to find common ground. Democracy is not a perfect form of government, but it is the best form of government we have. A key component to a functioning democracy is the separation of powers, which makes compromise a necessity. Not every single member of this commission or the administration agrees with the proposal in its entirety, but the document is a result of due diligence and give and take on both sides. For the last month or so, I'm excited to say our meetings have been cordial and civil, as the public demands and deserves. Our meetings were about problems and problem solving and not personal attacks. I humbly ask that tonight be no different from both politicians and the public. Tonight, let's represent the citizens of Ascension like they deserve to be represented. I'm excited about our plan moving forward that will allow a better working relationship and make our drainage successes shared successes. This agreement also includes hiring a drainage director that will help elevate our drainage program and provide new solutions to help enhance our residents' quality of life. Reaching this agreement was the first step in a new direction, and I'm eager to see the future of drainage improve in our parish. Every day provides an opportunity to do something better, and today, that is that day. Thank you, Chair and board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other comments? With that, we'll move on to the drainage report, and Mr. Ron, I believe you have some good news on some tree removals.
Go over to Bayou Manchac and touch on that a bit.
since Ida, there's kind of separation of projects that were already planned and on the books, and this is one of them, was Bayou Manchac with the trees that existed before Hurricane Ida. So in the slides, you'll see some of our crews have been in there since early September, getting some of the stuff out that we can get with our machinery and manpower. Kim Sprable was mobilized last week. My assistant, Jade Robin, has been very instrumental in getting that mobilized. So far, they removed trees and debris in Manchac that have fallen over the years, and they remain on the surface where they were there before Hurricane Ida. In phase 1 mapping of the trees, this phase has been completed, and the phase has been contracted out to Kim Spray, which I mentioned they started last week, and the work in Bayou Manchac is underway. And they started at the Amite River, and they're working their way up towards Alligator Bayou Road. So far, they've removed a total, I believe it's 22 trees, 16 of which are in Ascension. They fell from Ascension side, and 8 had fallen from East Baton Rouge. This is kind of some of the characteristics of what you're seeing out there. It's before and afters of the trees that were down and they were removed. They had to bring some specialized equipment in for some of the bigger trees to help move them and get them transported to the locations that were around residential areas. We had to get those carried out. Here's some of the guys with Kim Spray at work in the natural vegetated areas on both sides of the channel. Their scope is to get those trees block and tackled out of the channel where it doesn't affect drainage anymore. So that's some of the work underway, and different snags and characteristics of things that are out there all the way up and down Manchac right now. And as I mentioned, this is stuff that was down, prior to Ida. So we definitely wanted to give you guys the optics of the guys out working in the field. This is our lot that we own on Camp Drive. So when the next phase of work comes in from the RFP from Ida, you'll have a contractor come in to help get debris out of all of our major channels. This will be a point of distribution to get those trees out, and we're using that now. You can see some of the debris stored on the property, and we're utilizing some of the contractors that we have on the roadside debris to take this stuff and get it hauled off and disposed of. And so that's just kind of an overview of what we've been doing in Manchac in particular in that area, as it's been a prone area for the last several months. So we just want to give you guys as the board an overview of that. And so, it's kind of repetitive slides. It's just trees of this nature all up and down Manchac. Some of them are worse than others. Most of the Ida stuff is a lot worse than these. Some of those are all the way across in several places and catching debris. So following this effort up, we did an RFP that went out last week, and we'll have a selection committee tomorrow. And based off of that committee meeting, we'll hopefully have a contractor that we'll be looking at to get all the stuff that was down as a result of Hurricane Ida. And we'll start that project. And All South Engineering is also assisting us with that project. And ELOS is doing the permitting for those. And we have permits on several channels, and they will be permitting more along the way of that process as it continues. But anyhow, I just wanted to take the opportunity to give you guys an update, show the public that we are in Manchac doing what we can to get that channel back in compliance, as well as others. And in routine operations, we're pretty much still on trees on all the smaller ditches within the parish. I think we're in the upwards of 200 to 300 now that we've removed since Ida out of just drainage ditches all over the parish. So we're having to make a sweep over all of the system and get them all open and flowing again. And then this contract will come back behind that, pick a lot of that debris up and haul it off and dispose of it. So that's a pretty good undertaking and a pretty big size project that will probably take a little bit of time. But we're continually going at it, and we're hoping that once we kick the contractor off, that we'll be able to get more back into routine operations and start digging a lot more of our ditches and work orders. So that's kind of the where we are today in operations. Just want to give you guys an update, and that about concludes what I have.
Mr. Core?
Hey, Ron, thanks for the update. Are you guys tracking this on a daily basis?
Yes, sir.
Is there a way that you can forward that information to us so we can get it out to our constituents? Since that meeting we had a couple of Mondays ago, there's been a lot of interest as for what's the progress has been based upon the recommendations and the work that we had promised to give to them.
Yeah,
So-
I think we can formulate a little spreadsheet. I'll get with Clint and the administration. And go from
Perfect.
there.
So if you can get that to me, I can forward it out to them. I think it's going to show them that their efforts of calling all of us together to work on these projects is paying off. And I think it'd be beneficial for them. So thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Aaron?
Yes, Ron, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm going to understand this. So the prior, the trees that were in the ditches and in the bayous prior to Ida, that's not reimbursable by
Correct.
FEMA, correct?
That's
And everything we're going to do after through this RFP will be reimbursable through FEMA.
That is absolutely correct. There's a federal process we had to follow to get the reimbursement qualifications for the stuff that's a result of Ida. And we already had the contract in place just for maintenance on these other ones. And you're right, it's two different crafts that, so to say, that we'll be doing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Terry?
Ron, thank you so much. I appreciate your call to me this morning to kind of help me understand where we were. Our citizens are often concerned about how long things take. So I would appreciate it if you would take just a minute and go over those three phases again, so that
Okay.
people understand that you're not just going in. It's almost nonsensical to think that you have to go in and pick up trees, and you got to leave some because they fell during Ida, and pick up some because they had fallen before. It doesn't make sense, and it's not how the average person, if they were going to go clean out a ditch, would do it. But please help the public to understand that this is just the way it's got to be done, and if we don't do it this way, we are not reimbursed.
Sure, you pretty much said it. That's, we were along the way of getting some trees out of Manchac prior to Ida even being a thing. And so that's why we were able to have a permit in our hand, because we were already moving through the core process to get those trees removed. Thankfully, we have that permit, so when the next process of the bid and all that comes into place, we actually have a Corps of Engineer permit in hand. That can take up to 6 months sometimes, just to get a permit with a 214 agreement that we have with the Corps. So it varies, but it is a lengthy process to get the parish in compliance with all the regulations that we have to follow. And yes, I mean, it is frustrating that we're having to see trees that are green and leaves on them and have to leave them, and then knowing that we're coming with another contractor to take care of those. It sometimes doesn't seem very efficient, but it is the processes that are in place that all local governments have to follow to get reimbursed. And that can take months to years. I would think that this project with the bid for cleaning all of our channels is going to get into a time-consuming process. And it'll be task order per channel as we get permits. So it's going to take time. And it's frustrating. I wish I could just bail off and go do them. But you can't just do that in some cases. So you're right.
Thank you for clarifying and helping
ma'am.
people to understand that.
Mr. Johnny?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ron, thank you for the good report. Just a couple of quick questions. On that Camp Road site, what's the size of that parcel? You say it's parish-owned?
Yes, sir. It's probably about a half an acre. It's
Okay, so it's pretty good.
pretty substantial, but what's good about it is we have Camp Drive, which is literally 80 feet from Manchac.
Yeah.
So we're right able to offload onto the land we have, put it on the side of the road, and these debris trucks get right to the debris.
Good.
And so it works out well.
Good. And the other thing is, I know that we've used drone technology, HNTB did. Are we able to use that technology to help locate trees that have fallen across some of our waterways?
Absolutely. That's what we did in the damage assessment with All South, and they have flown several channels, and Manchac was one of them. And that's exactly how they're doing it, because some of them you can't even navigate with a boat. And so they're having to fly the drones to mark the trees and get photos and geotab them where they're at. That data is utilized to get the reimbursements to document that there was in fact trees down on the channels that we'll be submitting.
Very good. Thank you so much. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You had anything else on the drainage report, Ron?
No, that's it.
Well, I'm just gonna add my 2 cents to it, and I know the past president, Mr. Martinez is here, and Mr. Quintmore and Mr. Diaz. We have went out on many river cleanups, and Bayou Manchac has most probably been one of the biggest challenge out there, and I'm sure that all of our volunteers and cleanup people, when they see this, you see what the trees attract, all kind of debris, and I mean, just everything that can obstruct the flow of water. You see it. And, I just want to thank everyone for really, really pushing hard and getting this up front, because,
We're gonna do our best as well, Dempsey. You mentioned the trash floating, the bottles and Coke cans and all of that.
Yeah.
We're doing our best as well to get that stuff out too.
yeah,
And not just let it float downstream when we get to it.
sure. Mr. President?
That's what I wanted to make sure.
Okay.
We had our crews out there at the gator as we removed those trees, and as debris started to move towards Amy, we grabbed it and hauled out as much as possible so it would become somebody else's problem. So we wanted to note that we were trying to tackle those things.
Sure, great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we're gonna move on to A, floodplain management. Mr. John?
All right, good deal. Good evening. So, I'll keep it, it's gonna be very brief today, but I do have some, very important things on my PowerPoint. As usual, we'll go ahead and, update everything on the task 2 through 6, including the 18-month schedule. This is where we are right here, late September, early October. We're still on track to complete in 18 months. One of the things that we had a little bit of a snag with data collection because of the trees and the canals, but we're going to make that up somehow. I'm pretty sure about that. Data collection and acquisitions, this is the map that you guys are accustomed to seeing. Manchac Basin is 100% complete. Henderson Basin, 100% complete as well. The Marvin Bro Basin, which is part of the LWI survey update, Fort Tablada has reported that they're about 70% complete in Ascension. They're going to be about 2 months away from completing that in the Marvin Bro Basin. And then Bayou Conway, we have not tasked that out yet to CSRS, but that's going to be coming in a couple of weeks. We did some additional surveys along Magnolia Oaks Drive and Perkins Road, and I have a slide later on. I'll discuss a little bit about that. The design criteria and methodology that's been submitted, hopefully you have had a chance to take a look at it. It was the final draft. However, if there's any additional information that you would like to see on there, we will add it on to the final floodplain management plan. On the modeling side of the house, Bayou Manchac model is about 95% complete. That's coming along very nicely. We're currently calibrating and validating that model. I got a slide that shows you, it's going to show you what that looks like. Henderson Bayou model, we have sub-consultancy Hydro. They're about 30% complete done on that. The Marvin Bro Basin, 15% on that, and Bayou Conway Panama Canal is about 20% complete on that. We're doing that in-house. Some of the things that we'll show you next month, we're developing templates for the flood maps, and Bayou Manchac maps were the first ones that you will see. There's about maybe 28 maps broken up in that area, and you'll be able to see what that looks like. This is the Bayou Manchac modeling status. This is what 95% complete looks like. You can see the blue areas there. That is the area that takes on water from a 100-year storm. It's interesting to see that line that you see on your left side of the screen. That's actually the railroad tracks adjacent to Nicholson Drive. You can see how that acts as a dam in most parts of Iberville, and then on the southern portion of Ascension as well. Most of the water you see there is in the Spanish Lakes Blood Swamp area. With you can clearly see Ridge Road right there. It remains dry for the most part on a 100-year event. And this is the entire Bayou Manchac's modeling, which includes all 3 parishes, and we're fine-tuning the portion that's in Ascension. One of the things that we were able to do with the regional model about a month ago when we had a rainfall event, we looked at the Morgan Swamp, and this is a simulation, and you'll see where the water is going. The little white arrows is where the water is moving from one location to another, and I'll run that simulation right now. New River is on the southern side of the screen. You can see LA 74 running from left to right. Most of that water is in the Morgan Swamp, and it wants to go under 74. There are a couple of crossings in 74 that allows that to happen, including the Bayou Bro in Iberville. So it was pretty interesting to see. where the water's going. There are some natural cuts along New River on the south side that allows that water to go in a northerly direction. Just natural cuts in and around that area. I said this is the regional model. Once we do the man-check model, you'll be able to see more detail on these models. On the this is the May of 21 simulation, the rain event we had this past year. On the lower right-hand side, you will see the depth of inundation. That's the location which you're looking at right there. That is where Alligator Bayou meets Bayou Manchac Road. The northern portion of that is East Baton Rouge Parish. You can see how that's a deeper blue. It means it's deeper water. We all know the models have validated that, what we've always known. The water in EBR comes up faster and deeper than it does in Iberville and in Ascension. The line of the demarcation right there from Iberville and Ascension also, was interesting to see. The water does get a little bit deeper on the Iberville side before it gets to Ascension. So this is on the regional model. Again, we'll have better information once we calibrate the Ascension model. We did some surveys on the Magnolia Oak Drive location. Some of the things were interesting. It looks like we have some pipes that are undersized. There may be some regrading of the ditch in that area, but we're still putting that together in a model. So we'll have something for President Clinton maybe sometime next month when we get done with the analysis. While we're waiting on some of the survey data and we're calibrating models, we started working on the mitigation strategies. Our contract requires that we provide you with 30 projects. All of those 30 projects will have 8 of these pieces on it: the project title, description of the mitigation need, the project scope of work, the H&H analysis, environmental, land considerations, the project cost, project schedule, and a BCA, which is the benefit cost analysis. And I just included a couple of snippets here of what that looks like. So we'll have a sheet with the project title, description of the mitigation need, including some of the maps and inundation maps along with it as well. The project scope, it'll have a detailed project scope of what that project is supposed to do and accomplish, along with pictures. The H&H analysis, when we do the H&H analysis, we'll run different structures for crossings. We'll look at different, maybe a 6x6, 7x7s, or 8x8 box culverts, whatever that may be. This is just a sample of what that looks like. It's not an actual project, but just wanted to get you guys an idea as to what that looks like. We'll have a page or two on environmental land considerations. An estimated project cost with every aspect from to construct the project, engineering, plans and specs, construction admin, resident inspection services, and then also the estimated project schedule will give you some milestones for every project, and finally a benefit cost analysis. So we're working on that. The template's done, and once we start whittling down the projects down to 30, each one of those will have that. So. That concludes my presentation for this board's meeting. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Mr. Dow.
Oh, thank you. I had a question about that Morgan Swamp event. Was that just a regular rain event, or did you actually quantify if that was a 100-year, 50-year?
That was a 100-model simulation early on. So as you can see, for this simulation here, early on, that basin is a little smaller than the entire Spanish Lake Manchac Swamp, obviously. So early on, what you'll see is those arrows. Let's see if I can get it to play again. It's flowing from the Morgan Swamp towards the Bluff Swamp till it equalizes. This is only a 17-second snippet. And so just want to show that early on. You do have some overland flow on the left side, depending on natural ground elevations. And then New River the interesting thing about New River on the southern portion of this schematic here is that it does continue to move in an easterly direction. It swells up, and you do see some water in that Ridge Road canal area, but it does, it doesn't reverse flow. It still wants to flow towards Gonzales early on in a 100-year storm.
Okay.
See, I can run that simulation one more time. It's pretty neat to see.
Yeah, I did want to see it again, so I'm glad you did that.
Ms. Terry?
Yes, John, thank you very much. I want to let the president and his team know and that I need to brag on you a bit. I was not able to be present for the last drainage board meeting, and I called John and he said, look, I'll come sit down with you. I'll show you everything they're going to see so that you understand what's happening. you can ask questions. So I thank you for that. I encourage my fellow members of this commission to utilize you as often as they need to. You've never not returned my phone call or answered it promptly. Thank you very much, and we need to let your superiors know that you are that eager to make sure that we understand. I thank you very much for this Morgan Swamp information. This is a critical place in my district that what helps one area can hurt another, and what hurts one helps the other. So we have really got to be careful here, and I really applaud all of you for making the effort to understand exactly what happens there and get this right. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Mr. John? Not, thank you, John. Move on to B, Rhonda Place drainage improvements. Ms. Kim?
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm gonna go over some improvements we're proposing for the Rhonda Place subdivision. So Rhonda Place subdivision is located in Hobart. It was constructed in the late 70s, early 80s, and it sits where three watersheds converge, Muddy Creek, Henderson Bayou, and Black Bayou. But most of the subdivision either outfalls to the west into Black Bayou or to the east into Henderson Bayou. And this area experienced some flooding in the May flash flood events, mainly on the Henderson Bayou side. So this is some existing pictures of the outfall at Black Bayou. As you can see, it's a pretty deep, well-maintained channel. This is the outfall on the Henderson Bayou side. So it appears that throughout the years it's degraded, it's filled in, you can see some buried culverts, and there's not really a good connection into the Henderson Bayou watershed. So we've prepared this map of proposed projects we'd like to look into that we think would have some really good benefit to the neighborhood. First and foremost, we'd like to look into regrading the outfall at Henderson Bayou. If we're able to tie in that back portion of the neighborhood, we think it'd have great impact to the problems they're experiencing. That ditch along Eric Drive essentially grades to nowhere. So I think it would have some real merit to the neighborhood. Additionally, we'd like to look into extending Black Bayou to the east from where it currently is, just to give it a little additional capacity because it is such a deep channel. We think we could get some improvement to the neighborhood. It doesn't have any detention as it is because it was built so long ago before drainage impact studies. So we think those two projects would have some impact to the neighborhood, and there's also potential to look into maybe extending Black Bayou further, but that would take some more significant modeling because that ties two watersheds into each other, which could have some more adverse impacts. So we'd like to look into all three of those different projects, and if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Mr. Corr?
Thank you, sir. Dig ditches, I guess that's what we gotta try to get done, right?
Yes.
And I think the first step would be taking care of, is it Eric Drive and?
I think that's the more critical, yes. But we'd like to model it just to make sure that we're not going to adversely impact the Henderson Bayou downstream, but that area was supposed to connect to that originally, so.
Right. Do we have any data that would show us that it ran that way at one point? I mean, do we have anything in our archives that show us that at one point those ditches were deep enough to allow that water to flow towards Henderson Bayou? Does anybody in administration know?
When this subdivision was built, they just didn't do the appropriate regional studies and drainage studies, not only within there, but you can see within the subdivision, the only capacity you have is roadside ditches. There's no detention ponds, there's nothing there.
Right.
The storm that was present, not the May, but the July flooding that Galvez and Prairieville suffered, when I drove through here, the front of the subdivision to the west is the entrance, was dry. Eric Street, the residents had to block off Todd and Alice Drive so no one would drive because the water was at the base of the homes. That's how close it was. And then when it all passed, when I went back, you could see the deficiencies on the eastern side of the subdivision that drains into Henderson. The more important part is the same as what we're going to see when Crawford comes up later tonight, is that, you know, these weren't looked at regionally, and that's what we're going to do now. So we're looking back in the past to see what we probably should have done way back when Rhonda Place was first submitted as a subdivision, and we're just kind of backtracking. The residents, obviously with their flooding issues of late, fear the new high school. And so having a drainage structure in between the two will not only provide some extra security and protection from runoff from the school, but would provide additional capacity as well. And since, and again, I want to call it GSA. I know, I don't want to say it. I'm going to call it a McCreed. I'm going to come up with some acronym so we can shorten that up. But they're doing the school engineering, and so that's why they were able to have some additional data and present to Davis, because they were already working on school drainage solutions there. So it was an easy ask for them to come in and give this presentation today.
So we'll be able to share some of this cost with the school board, since the addition of their new high school is going to have an adverse impact on this neighborhood.
I would like to note that it is not going to have an adverse impact on the neighborhood. We performed a drainage impact study that was reviewed and approved by the engineering review agency for Ascension Parish. We did 2 different types of modeling, both HECRAS and HydroCAD, to not only model the runoff for the site, but also model Black Bayou that runs through the site. So there should be no adverse impacts from this. This is just an additional measure to counteract the flooding that the neighborhood is already experiencing before the high school is constructed.
Have we informed the citizens of Rhonda Place subdivision that there will be no negative impact? Because I think they're expressing their concerns as well.
The school board has met with some residents, and there's copies of the drainage impact study at the parish. I mean, I have the approval as well, so
Yeah.
if anyone wants to review the drainage impact study, it certainly can be made available.
Well, I understand. I mean, studies are studies, and I think everyone on this board at one point or the other has questioned a study. I guess my biggest concern, and I'm glad the parish president drove out there and we take a look at it. It's obvious that at some point in the past, that ditch that you showed us on Eric Drive was not flat. That at some point in time, it was flowing somewhere, and it just silted up. And I guess my whole question is, can we find out when that happened, how that happened, and what can we do to avoid it throughout the rest of the parish as well? You know, because I think that's been the main issue with most of our subdivisions, is the fact that we've lacked the manpower and the planning to address the roadside ditches and the small canals, the small channels, cleaning and maintenance. And I think now that we're going to get this dug out to where water's going to actually flow somewhere, I think the people in Rhonda Place are going to be very happy with us.
And I might add that a cause of the problem could be that the neighboring neighborhood is also an older neighborhood that didn't require drainage impact studies. So one cause of this silt-in could be that both subdivisions were built before the parish was really looking into it and enforcing the no impact to the neighbor. So it could have been silted as a result of constructing of the neighborhood next to it.
Yeah,
And-
but if that were the case, then this neighborhood would have been flooding for the last 40 years. And I don't think we've had those kind of problems there for 40 years. So I mean, I understand there's a possibility there, but I think, you know, it's really the issue of we're coming together, we're formulating a plan to do maintenance, make sure that we have a regular maintenance schedule so that our citizens are protected on that scale, while you guys, the engineers, are being able to figure out how we can resolve everything on the regional scale. You know, I mean, God knows I'm not smart enough to figure out John's flowing picture map that he showed us earlier. I mean, that was outstanding, and I know I don't fully understand all the hydrology and that you're presenting here, but I think our citizens are looking at, I've got a ditch that's been filled in for 30 years, it's about time we dig it up. And so I'm glad that we're on the same page there. And I'll fully support any project that drainage director office wants to put forward to clean this up so those folks can have a little more confidence that they'll stay dry the next time it rains. So I appreciate your presentation.
Mr. Aaron.
Kim, first of all, thank you very much. You answered a lot of my questions ahead of time about looking towards adverse effects. We just want to make sure, of course, we don't want to flood anybody downstream to fix other problems. We want to fix everything at once. First of all, we all work with the school board on traffic concerns, so they are going to, we're working together with Kim actually to fix some things in that area. So we got some cooperation going there, which is good. One of my questions was just, I'm looking at Eric Drive. Tell me a little bit about right angles in water, because I'm not a drainage engineer, but I've heard you don't always want to do right angles, or can we mitigate having some right angles by having bigger pipes, or is there,
So
I'm just curious. This is
the
just
thing with
education.
Eric Drive is there doesn't seem to be many crossing pipes. So part of this might be looking into adding in pipes
Okay.
to get water to connect to the ditch along Eric Drive. If you go out there, and I don't know if you can see it too well with this picture, but the water kind of naturally eats away at the right angle and comes up with a smoother, easier angle to connect to the stream. And it's very present when you go out there. Everything's kind of rounded out. And you can see that in this instance, because the outfall has degraded so much, the water is finding the path of least resistance. And in some instances, it appears that that means this water backs into Black Bayou on some occasions. So the confluence is something that we're definitely going to look into.
Okay, good. Is there any action that we need to take as a commission right now, or for you to move forward? Or
I think we'd like to have something on the next agenda with some costs for an
Okay, and
item to be approved.
I want to tell you thank you, and Ron thank you. Where'd Ron go? He's hiding back there somewhere. God, Ron and Jade, y'all look alike when y'all are just sitting there. I'm going to get different haircuts or a wig or something. But thank y'all very much for doing this, because I know this has been a big problem in this neighborhood for a while. Thank you, Kim.
Mr. Michael.
Yeah, I just kind of want to piggyback on what Corey said. I actually spoke to some of the residents out there, and they did say what Kimberly suggested was correct, that when the new subdivision was built, they did just kind of all fill in at the same time. And I asked them how long have they been having the issues, and they said it's been kind of a more of a recent thing, and they blame it on all the subdivision around them. And I'm not a hydrology expert, so I'm not going to say anything, but yeah, so I think they said at one point, though, it did flow behind there pretty well, that it filled in within, I think, 10 to 15 years of that subdivision being built. So, yes, you are correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just real quick, you have something?
No.
What, how many homes do we have in there? Was it
I don't know
13? I don't know.
that off the top of my
I'd
head.
heard 13 at one time.
It's more than 13. It's 3 streets. So
Okay.
maybe 50 or 60 homes. Do you know off the top of your head?
I think it's about 35 affected and maybe 80 total
Okay.
in the neighborhood.
Okay, I guess, and also what I'd like to see, Kim, if possible, what percentage are we gonna try to put into Black Bayou, and what percentage we're gonna try to put into Henderson Bayou? Because, I mean, I'd like to see,
Ideally, we'd like to follow the natural ridge line and keep the watersheds as consistent as possible. We are going to have to look into, and I don't think this will be an issue in this neighborhood because it's so old, but the fear with tying into watersheds is Henderson Bayou's base flood elevation is 2 feet higher than Black Bayou. So we'll look into houses themselves in the neighborhood to make sure that we're not tying higher houses into lower houses or vice versa and negatively impacting anyone. So we'll try to follow the natural hydrology.
appreciate you.
130 houses in the neighborhood.
Mr. President.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that, when we can say this problem existed for 30 years, what we're experiencing this year is the amount of record rainfall is bringing to light a lot of the issues that have been lingering, but when you don't see it till you go out and look at the water. Record number of storms last year, intensity of storms, the amount of rainfall that's fallen as fast, per hour rate. So we're noticing things now that we've never noticed before because we're getting the rain. Is it going to happen in the future? Absolutely. We all know it will. This could be the new norm, and we got to prepare for that. But a lot of these things are coming to light because the weather pattern has changed and is bringing all these things to the forefront as we've developed so much in the past 2 decades. And now we're seeing the effects of some of the things. And so it's not that it's, I don't want to emphasize that this has been a lack of any previous administration or previous board. That's my point. We're in a different rain cycle, and we're getting different rain patterns, and they're bringing to light a lot of issues that are there. And so I just wanted to make a point that it's nobody's past failures. We're just experiencing different weather cycle now that we got to prepare for in the future, and it's bringing a lot of these situations to the forefront of our attention. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Kim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to C, the overview of hazardous mitigation grant program. We have GOSEP. Good evening.
How are y'all?
Good.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having me tonight. We've had lots of good mitigation discussion so far. I've enjoyed it, so thank you. We'll switch gears just a little bit. We'll keep with mitigation, but we'll talk about some programs that can fund some of these good mitigation initiatives and ideas that you have. So what is hazard mitigation? I think everybody in the room knows what mitigation is. Any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term effects to people and property from natural hazards and their effects. Some examples: elevate or acquire flood-prone properties, safe room construction, localized drainage improvements, which we've talked about thus far in this meeting, which could be increased capacity, increased pump size, move more water, store more water, hold more water. And lastly, redundant power for critical facilities. Why do we mitigate? Up until recently, the dollar numbers thrown around were for every dollar spent in mitigation, there's $4 in future benefits. That is increased to $6 in future benefits. So we spend $1 to save $6. And as Parish President mentioned, it's not just a matter of if, but when. We know they're more frequent, they're heavier, more intense, et cetera. So it's best to be prepared and to explore all opportunities that we have. What natural hazards can be mitigated? Hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, tornadoes, to name a few. I think those that are most prevalent in this area would be hurricanes and floods, deal with a lot of those. They certainly can be mitigated through FEMA's grant programs. This is an example of two structures, assuming the structure on the left is in the special flood hazard area, at or below base flood elevation. He flooded. Structure on the right is an elevated structure, which is something we can pay for through FEMA's mitigation grant programs. FEMA offers 3 hazard mitigation assistance programs in their suite or their portfolio of grant programs. One is HMGP, which is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. The second is FMA, which is Flood Mitigation Assistance. And the third is Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. And for the sake of this presentation, we're going to focus on the first 2. This, same as the previous slide, just a better visual for those that like pictures. BRIC and FMA are what we call non-disaster grants. HMGP, which is Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, is a post-disaster grant. So more about the HMGP, or the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. This is pulled from Stafford Act Section 404. Sometimes it's referred to 404 mitigation, or HMGP. This grant funding is only made available after a declared disaster, and the funding that's allocated is based on a percentage of the PA dollars, public assistance dollars, and the individual assistance dollars awarded during that declared disaster. This program can be used to mitigate all threats and hazards, and FEMA will cover up to 75% of project costs. Now this one, very difficult to plan for because of the unknown. Again, it's dependent upon natural disasters, and it's more of a reactive grant program, right? Something bad happens, we flood, we're hit with a hurricane, we're awarded a bunch of money to mitigate, but there's been lots of things that have been damaged, right? So it's a reactive mitigation grant program, and it's only available after a declared disaster. Flood mitigation assistance. Unlike HMGP, this is an annual competitive grant program. It's available nationwide to all 50 states as well as 6 territories. And funding for this grant program comes from the NFIP. And because it comes from the NFIP, there has to be a benefit to the NFIP for projects that are awarded under FMA. Projects that are selected for funding are based on FEMA's priorities, and FEMA announces their priorities in what we call a Notice of Funding Opportunity, or it's commonly referred to as a NOFO. FMA projects can only be used to mitigate flood-related hazards or impacts. Again, this would be elevations of structures, acquisition and demolition of structures as well. I mentioned previously related to structures insured under the NFIP, and that's an important clause in red there, insured under the NFIP. Any structure that is in a sub-application for a mitigation activity, whether that's elevate, whether that's acquire and demo, or acquire and relocate, they must have flood insurance at the time of application period open, and it must be maintained in perpetuity. And there's a focus on this grant program on the repetitive loss and severe repetitive loss structures. Typically, there's a 75-25 cost share for this grant program as well. But if a house meets a definition or a structure meets a definition of having been severe repetitive loss or repetitive loss, there's a reduced cost share to 10% or even 0% for the SRL structures. That's important as well to the homeowners because typically the cost share is provided for by the beneficiary of a mitigation project. So in an elevation acquisition type project, it's the homeowner that typically pays for that cost share that's required of these grant programs. So RL and SRL will have a significantly reduced cost share. Reminder, hazard mitigation, sustained action to reduce risk. Very important, and I think the gentleman before me talked about BCA. Eligible projects must be cost beneficial. They need a BCR equal to or greater than 1.0 to be considered for funding by FEMA. This is just a little bit more about BCA is required for most projects, determines if it's effective, and the benefits. What were the damages before mitigation minus the damages after mitigation? That calculation goes into the BCA as well as the project costs. And you can see the scale here for projects where the benefits outweigh the costs can be funded. Conversely, for projects where the costs outweigh the future benefits, FEMA will determine those as not cost effective or NCE and deny them for funding. So the grant's timeline, I think one word that I didn't include here that I should have included here is probably patience. Anytime we're dealing with FEMA grant programs, either HMGP or FMA, timelines are pretty similar. Unfortunately, it just takes some time. And I think the Bayou Manchac presentation earlier touched on the PA program, public assistance. That too is a FEMA-funded program. Takes a little bit of time. So using HMGP as an example, disaster declared, I think for Hurricane Ida, that was 8/29 of 21. And then from that date of disaster, FEMA is going to issue an iterative series of estimates, HMGP estimates, because remember, HMGP is only available after a declared disaster. So at 30 days, FEMA is going to give us an estimate. They're going to say, this is your ballpark number of mitigation dollars. At 6 months, they're going to true it up just a little bit more, because remember, it's all of your PA dollars and IA dollars that are going into that calculation. At 6 months post-disaster, they have a better idea as to what has been paid out in each of those respective programs. Then 1 year, FEMA locks in the state's hazard mitigation grant program allocation. So from that disaster declaration to post-disaster 1 year, it takes 1 year to find out how much we're going to receive in terms of funding. Within that same year to about 6 months after, 12 to 18 months post-disaster, applications can be submitted for review, can be submitted for funding. All applications will go through the FEMA request for information process, which means we like your project, great idea, great information, but we're missing some information. We're void of some critical information needed to determine if the scope is eligible, if the homeowner is eligible. Provide us more. RFI process can take 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer. and then we add all of those timelines up, and 1 to 2 years post-event, on a generous timeline, we're looking at a FEMA award. FMA timeline, very similar to HMGP, except for this is an annual grant program. The NOFOs usually come out each August, and the application period opens typically at the end of January and runs through the end of January of the following year. So it's a 4-month application period. All applications must be submitted January of '22 for this cycle. FEMA will then spend 4 to 5 months reviewing all of the applications submitted nationwide. They go through a national technical review. Remember, nationally competitive. So FEMA then sits in a room. They spend 4 to 5 months to review all sub-applications that were submitted. And sometime in June, July of next year, 2022, they will announce the project status of all projects that were submitted. And there's 3 statuses that each project can be classified as. One is ineligible, didn't meet the basic HMA requirements. 2 is not selected, which means typically good project, great idea, we would have selected it, however, we didn't have enough funding to select it. And the 3rd status is the one that we're all shooting for. It's called identified for further review. And if your project has been identified for further review, there's a great chance that it will get funded. However, before it gets funded, it too must go through the request for information process. And again, that can be a 3 to 6 month process. So for this particular funding cycle that we're in for FMA 21, homeowners could have realistically been approached a couple of months ago to drum up interest to see who wants to be elevated, who wants to be acquired, to identify what the need is in the community. Application is submitted by January of '22. July of '22, FEMA says this is the status of your project. And perhaps by the end of '22 or maybe early '23, those projects would be funded. So again, patience. Requires an extreme amount of patience to navigate these grant programs. For more information, I do have some cards I can leave. Anybody from the board wants to contact me, I've got some cards. Questions for myself or the State Hazard Mitigation Officer, Jeff Gearing. There's his contact information as well. And that concludes my presentation. Any questions of me?
Mr. Aaron?
I do. That was amazing information.
I tried to condense as much as I could. It's a lot, so
No, it is.
I'm glad. Thank
It is.
you.
It's a lot of reading.
It is.
In the past, even. But best practices with regards to mitigation programs. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
For
at
the community level or grant level?
At the community level, at our level, what are some of the best practices that we should be looking at to put ourselves in a better position to get these grants?
So depends on what sort of grant we're interested in. I heard lots of project ideas prior to me that would probably be good candidates under the BRIC program, which is one we didn't touch on, which is Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. That program was new last year. So this is year number 2. We're still learning a lot about the BRIC grant program. But what I can say, and what FEMA stresses, they are particularly interested in those projects that have nature-based solutions. So how can we tie in nature to the problems that we're trying to solve? Restoring the natural floodplain, what can we do from that perspective? So that's the new buzzword in BRIC is NBS or nature-based solutions. From an individual homeowner mitigation perspective, we have some parishes that submit quite often and quite frequently. They'll be fortunate enough to receive the HMGP, and they're very active each year in the FMA as well. But then again, they have high saturation of both SRL and RL properties, and based on the NOFO priorities, those structures typically rank higher. So if your community does not have structures that meet that definition, it's going to be a tougher sell in FMA. Not impossible, but tougher. And those homes that were not successful in FMA may be better candidates under HMGP. But the struggle with HMGP is the cost share, right?
That was my next question. Is there a way for homeowners to lower their cost share?
Not a way to lower, but there's some things that can be used to offset ICC increased cost of compliance if they're fortunate enough to receive that from their homeowner's insurance or flood insurance. Or they can use some flood insurance proceeds as well. So insurance is about the most common thing we see. And we have to ensure that it's not considered duplication of benefit. But nothing can be done to lower per se. In HMGP, there's really nothing that can be done. It's 25% because they're limited into what they can provide by the Stafford Act, they being FEMA.
Yes. One last question.
Sure.
Because I was kind of interested in some of the brick stuff. Does that relate to the CRS, community rating system? Or projects that we may be doing for that?
Yes, sir. Last year, I think that ties in. So under brick, I could have included some more slides, my apologies, but under brick, each project undergoes what's called I think it's a quantitative or technical analysis where it's binary, all or nothing for the points, as well as a qualitative analysis, which is more subjective. But CRS was last year, I'm not sure about this year in particular, but that was one of the ranking criteria, I believe, on the technical side. There's 5 different items that FEMA evaluates projects are: CRS, building codes, what are your current building codes? Did this originate from a previous project scoping project that FEMA funded? And forgive me, I can't remember the 5 criteria, but CRS does factor into it to a degree.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any, Mr. President?
Yes, board member Mason had brought up in the past, and I just wanted to check since you were here. He had mentioned an opportunity for East Ascension Drainage to put up a portion of the cost share. And obviously, it would be a number that we would maybe put in annually and then would maybe pay a third or half of that cost share. Is that possible if the board elects to do so?
For the board to pay a percentage of the cost share?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay.
As long as it comes from a non-federal source. And
Gotcha.
I imagine that would be the case.
Thank you. That's all I have.
But I'll close. I mean, you all have lots of great project ideas that were discussed prior to me. Those could be good candidates under BRIC or HMGP or either FMA. So keep us in mind as you're developing these applications and you're trying to fund some of these. FEMA can participate in 75%, which could help alleviate some of the financial stressors at the local level.
Definitely.
But I thank you for y'all's time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ron, you had anything else? Nothing? All right, thank you so much. Move on to number 7. Number 7, this is the request for approvals to apply for the year 2021 flood mitigation assistance. Ms. Irvin.
Assistant grant and to authorize Parish President Clint Quentmore to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this application.
So moved.
Thank you.
Moved by Mr. Aaron, second by Ms. Terry. Any objections? Any discussion? None? Motion passed. Thank you, Ms. Irvin.
Well placed on the agenda.
Move on to B, approval of amendment number 3. It's Mr. Savoy. We have a,
Yeah, this is a request for approval number 3, amendment to the master contract professional service with H. Davis Cole and Associates for the New River Canal Watershed Project to extend the contract term for an additional year, November 2nd, 2022. It's just a time extension, no money added.
moved by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Johnny. Any discussion? Any opposition? None? Motion passed. Approval for amendment number 4. Mr. Ron.
Yeah, approval of amendment number 4 to H. Davis Cole and Associates LLC master contract for professional service to increase the contract by $110,919 for a contract total not to exceed $561,119 for the next phase of the New River Canal project control structure at New River Weir and US 61, the tilting weir concept as Exhibit A attached here to and made their part of, for design, geotechnical testing, permitting, and bidding services for construction.
Moved by Mr. Johnny, second by Mr. Michael. Discussion, Mr. Chase. Mr. Chase.
Mr. Cole, would you mind coming in, answer a question, please? During our construction meeting with the contractors for, look, and I swear I'm not gonna hold you, to a number. Do we have a ballpark of what we think that this structure would cost us?
Yeah, 1.5 million.
Right, okay. And the reason I ask is the same discussion we've had, like in the past, 3-4 years ago, it was mentioned this might be a $3 to $5 million, project. And some of us might not feel comfortable with spending $100,000 designing something that we, may or may not be able to afford. So at 1.5 is something that we feel comfortable with. And that's it. That's all.
Okay.
I just wanted to kind of get that out there, that we think it's a lot cheaper than it was years ago.
Absolutely, yeah, the administration came up with a good solution, and we just fleshed it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no more comment.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion, Mr. Johnny. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Let me try it again.
If you would, one more time, Davis. Just to clarify, this that's an extension of the contract, but this new amount is going to cover design, engineering, and you're going to also oversee the construction when they install this, correct?
I believe we left that part of
it.
it off, the construction, not knowing exactly when we would be
That's
bidding it.
included in the existing New River dredging project,
right.
but
That's
not
what I
necessarily yet on that'll
That's what I
come
thought.
later.
We go all the way through taking bids, and then at that point, we would, depending on what we get, we would go from there.
Thank you.
All right, with that, motion second. Any further discussion? Any opposition? None? Motion passed. Move on to D, approval of task order number 2021-HE 001. Mr. Ron?
Yes, sir. This is approval, as you mentioned, of task order 2021 HEI 001 with Hartman Engineering Incorporated to develop a HEC-Graph model of an approximately 0.65 mile section of Villa Galvez ditch from the bridge crossing North Galvez Avenue heading southeast to the confluence of Marty Burette Ditch, and to include approximately 300 feet of concrete paving, and construction plans and specs will be prepared after modeling effort, with bidding, construction administration, resident inspection services also included in the scope of work. The amount not to exceed $157,000.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Aaron, second by Ms. Terry. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Chase.
Just for the record, Hartman has went through the RFQ process as one of our approved, 157,000. Right?
Yes, that's our retainer contract with $1 million
Okay.
throughout the 14 firms, and we're recommending that you look into this if we want to go this route for this project.
Perfect. Thank you.
Discussion. Any opposition? None? Motion passed. Thank you, Parish President and Ron. We worked on this, and it's going to be a really good project. We'll move on to E, approval of task order number 2021-HEI 002. Mr. Ron?
Yes, sir. Approval of task order 2021 HEI 002 with Hartman Engineering to development the HEC-Graph modeling conceptual engineering study, provide mitigation alternatives for determining the major cause of significant flooding at Crawford Road, Decatur Road, and an area north of Black Bayou Road, in an amount not to exceed $52,000. Construction plans and specifications will be prepared after modeling is complete. However, these costs are not included in the task order.
Moved by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Dow. Discussion? Mr. Corey.
Ron, and maybe this question may also have to go to Mr. Quintmore. I know we're in the process of doing a full parish study to determine, I guess, these items, whether or not these are necessary and what prioritizing we're going to give to each of these. How is that going to be incorporated into this full regional plan that we're putting together? How is that we're going to keep doing piecemealing, I guess is what I'm asking.
So this is very similar to the issue you have on Perkins. These are identified because of the rain we have. We walked this with several residents, with Councilman Wagisback, and it is obvious that sometimes we can look at the regional big pictures, which HNTB is doing for us, and they're looking at our major channels and how our feeders feed into those and what's undersized. But oftentimes, we're going to need to look at, just like we're looking at Highway 74, just like we're looking at Charleston and Willow Lake, just like we're looking at Perkins. These are something that we can do in-house quickly, or we can assume to wait. But there's photographs, there's evidence that we can quickly adjust this. And this is the reason why we brought the 14 firms on, is to tackle Villa Galvez, another one. These are just the reason why we have those 14 firms on there to handle these type of projects. And, they're not massive in scope, but instead of guesswork, we have those engineers verify those and look at flows and do those things necessary so that we're putting in the proper structures. We then feed that information to HNTB to put into the larger module and into that model, so that we have retained that model at the end of that, and then we have all that information for us to use in every project in the future. And the goal is to build that model based on all these little projects and feed it into that model every time, and so that we can slowly see how our drainage is changing, improving as these little projects come on, and then that'll identify other future projects. So that's the goal.
Perfect. And that's kind of what I was asking. I was kind of setting the volleyball up to a low net so you could slam it over.
I appreciate that.
And give us that good answer. And the goal is to keep the work efforts done in-house, I would hope, for these kind of small projects, right?
Correct.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any opposition? Ms. Terry.
I just want to take a second to thank you, sir, and the staff for these kinds of little projects, the Perkins Road, Villa Galvez. These are the kind of things we need to be doing. And we are so excited to see it, but I am particularly grateful to see it being done and with engineering to support what we think will happen. Because if we make a mistake, we cause other problems. So thank you very much for this, and others tonight.
With that, no further discussion. Motion passed. We're going to move into K on the general business. Vote to approve addendum to the contract between the parish president and East Ascension Gravity Drainage District Number 1. Just want to make a note, this has been quite a few months, and I want to thank everyone on the board. It's just, the parish is changing, like the parish president said. A lot of things are changing, and I welcome this and hope in good faith and having and I said it before, the best drainage system that we can have. So with that, that's what I'm offering, Mr. President, for this addendum. Mr. Johnny, motion to approve.
Second.
No, not okay. I have a motion by Mr. Johnny, second by Mr. Terry. Sure. Mr. Corey?
Thank you. Mr. Quintmore, you and I have had our ups and downs, and it got very tenacious several months back. I want to let you know that I have the utmost confidence that this agreement is going to work for all of us. 31 years practicing law, negotiating, arbitrating, nobody ever walks out of that room fully satisfied. And, obviously, there are trust issues that we all need to work on with each other. And I believe I believe we've taken the first good steps towards it. I certainly want to thank you again for meeting with a number of my constituents 2 weeks ago. That was very important to those folks, and I know it was a really good, positive step for all of the elected officials that were in that room. And it's convinced me that even though in the very beginning I had my doubts, that I've seen some very positive steps towards this. And I want you to know I will be there to assist you every chance you call on me. And we're going to get some of these problems done. And I really want to thank you again for assuring me that as we move forward in the Bayou Manchac region, you and I are going to have a lot more sit-downs so that I can convey information to my constituents. So again, I'm supporting what we did here. It was a real big coming to Jesus for all of us. And so congratulations on sticking on board, hopefully.
Thank you.
Hopefully everybody else
Appreciate
has
the
the same opinion I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Chase.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I emailed everyone today some markups on the agreement, and look, I'm not, 100%, dead set on all of these amendments, but there are kind of things that I was hoping maybe we could just discuss and talk through a little bit. And before we jump in here, I do want to give a kudos to everybody on the commission and parish president. Like Mr. Ogeron just said, when everybody leaves and nobody is 100% happy, that's a pretty good compromise for everyone. So, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everybody bending but not breaking on what they wanted and moving forward. And with that said, I would the first thing I'd like to ask is kind of the argument towards this new person being a parish employee or a contractor. Like, I'm open.
Can I ask you a question before we get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't get a chance to read the amendments that you submitted, and I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to fully incorporate them. I'd like to ask legal counsel, if it's possible, can we delay looking at these amendments until our next meeting? And we could always amend the contract at a later time, but just to kind of give us all an opportunity to read Chase's requested amendments. If it's possible, great. If not, I guess we vote on it tonight, but
Right.
I'd like to really understand what you're recommending before I make a decision on that.
Would you be okay with putting this back on the next agenda for discussion?
Sure. As far as the addendum, we need to act on it, but as far as the bullet points that you have here.
Yeah, I don't want to do anything to hold up the addendum because y'all all getting along so well. So I don't want to. No, I love it. I don't want to hold it up, but I would like us. Look, it's been a rough 2 months with the storms and everything, and we haven't had time to kind of sit down in groups and look. And the only major thing is parish employee versus contractor. I mean, the rest of it, I think, is just kind of more specific language into what we expect. Look, I'm okay with passing as is if I can get Chair's word that on November we'll put it back to discuss any possible amendments.
Sure.
And
I tell you what, let us finish first.
I just had 2 points
Okay.
to clarify. First of all, the addendum is to the original contract between Mr. Martinez and the Drainage Board that was done in 2009. And so, because there were some other votes and other contracts that were voted on in June of this year. We're not doing an addendum to those, we're doing an addendum to the original contract that was passed.
June 28th. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
2009. Yeah.
It was February 25th, 2009. So that's what this addendum is. As I look, and to your issue on the employee, I went over that with Kenneth, and we discussed that, and this is going to be, my understanding is this is going to be a parish employee who is going to have a contract for his terms. Okay? And so you can be at will, or you can have a contract but still be an employee. And so this is going to be a parish employee. The parish council is going to vote to create the position. He's just going to have a contract that specifies his terms of employment. That is what's proposed here.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, if I get, you good with it, you know, for
Yeah, let's
cohesiveness?
go. Do you have any more comments? We have one more that wants to speak too.
No, I'm good.
Mr. Joe.
As much as I hate to break the peace here, I disagree on this addendum to the contract. I hear a lot of thanks to all the board members for participating. I didn't participate at all, even though I asked to participate and be in some of these groups, number one. Number two, this is almost 6 months, 6 months that we've spent of resources, that we've spent of money, time, after we're doing this moratorium. I mean, we could have spent all this time actually making these changes or on other useful things. I feel like this is just a waste of time, accomplishing nothing. A bit of, you know, a little dog and pony show, if I may. And I'm going to object to it. I will say, in the 2 years of the Quintmile administration with Ryan Savoy as Director of Drainage, they have done more than the whole entire term of Bill Rue or his whole entire tenure.
Come on, be respectful.
I'm being very respectful.
No, you're not. Be respectful.
They have done more projects than Bill Rue has done for this parish. That's a fact, Chairman.
And that's a lie.
Be respectful, Chairman.
No, you be respectful.
So, secondly, it's just spitting in their face for doing the good work for the people. And I'm not going to sit here because I got elected for a reason to speak for my people. And the people don't want this. This is a joke. Dempsey. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second for the addendum. Roll call, Miss Liz. Motion passed. And we, Mr. Vice Chair, we will have it, the amendments back on for the following month. All right, we're gonna go to F, and we do have a speaker, Mr. Latt.
Here. Y'all, I want to commend you for your positive strokes on one another tonight. I really do. This is refreshing. The people of the parish have been watching you very closely. I, for the first time in 35 years, have been watching you very closely for the last 3 to 4 months. Now, all this kumbaya is great, but I'd like to remind everybody how we got here to F through L. We're going to reverse and undo all the things that were done June the 28th up here. Now, none of us are ever probably going to know why it was so important to shove all that through on that very night rather than answering the request of your co-chair, who had no idea what you were even up to June 28th. And he requested that we at least table it, take a time out, ask some questions, answer some questions. Nobody got questions answered this whole time. And then all of a sudden, we hear you're negotiating in good faith. And then there's this letter, September 23rd. You're fired. We're done with you. And then some of us decided we're done with you. And we stood out here on these steps with some colorful posters that ended up on Channel 9 News that night. And miraculously, on the 28th, we're back to Kumbaya again. I don't know whether it was the colorful posters or whether it was calls from leaders around the parish who said, hey, y'all are embarrassing our parish in this state, the way you're acting. And then finally, I'm just going to say, I question if we really are communicating and behaving like adults that we thought we elected. Why do we need Bill Rue to be a liaison? I don't think we do. We can take that money and put it towards getting an actual expert to help us, which is really what you should have done back on June 28th instead of what you did. And so I'm glad that y'all are getting along and you at least are appearing to want to do the business of the people. I just hope that you can continue it and that it isn't a result of the fact that there are 6 recall campaigns underway. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to move item F.
Moved by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Dow. Discussion? Any opposition? None. Motion passed. We're going to G.
Motion to move item G.
Moved by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Michael. Discussion? Any opposition? Motion passed. H. Moved by Ms. Terry, second by Mr. Aaron. Any opposition? Motion passed. I. Motion by Ms. Terry, second by Mr. Johnny. Any opposition? None. Motion passed. J is the vote to cancel the contract
Motion.
within 60 days. Mr. Chase made the motion, second by Ms. Terry. Any opposition? Motion passed. L moved by Mr. Ogeron. Second by Ms. Terry. Any opposition? Question?
No position. Okay, I was actually going to make a amendment.
Amendment by Mr.
I sent everybody
Aaron.
an email on this today. I'd like to amend the contract to add number 8 in place of the current number 8, and so moving the current number 8 down to number 9. And it would be to add, develop and present a drainage conveyance way maintenance plan for presentation no later than the March 2022 EACDD East Ascension Consolidated Drainage District Committee meeting. What this comes from is when we first started doing this, one of the things that we realized is that we needed maintenance on our major conveyance ways. Mr. Rue has done this before. He said he can do it. I think he can get it done well before March 22nd, and that's something that can be presented to us because I think we've heard everybody up here talk about it, how we want a maintenance plan, and this is an opportunity to get it. And so I'd like to amend the contract to add that. Number 8.
We got one more speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry, the speaker, I didn't realize it.
Mr. Dow, I'm gonna let you go and then we'll get the speaker.
Yeah, so, and I can appreciate what Aaron said. I'm not saying I'm against this position, but as we just tabled some of the amendments from Mr. Melanson, I would like to find out more about just what this position is gonna do and just have I'm not saying I'm against it, just a little more discussion about what the role is. I mean, I see one role where he's a liaison, but I see another role where he's gonna be a maintenance. I mean, if we're gonna do this, I wanna see, let's get some buy-in from our drainage, department. And maybe he does come on and do maintenance or whatever he does, and maybe he helps us in this interim while we're hiring this new guy, but I'd like to see us have a little more discussion and a little more detail around what that actual task is for him.
Sure.
So that would be my motion to defer.
Do you mean the maintenance task, or?
I mean, the entire thing.
Gotcha.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we hold that just for a second? We have one speaker, Ms. Katrina.
Hi. First, I want to thank you all for coming back to public meetings where we can all get together and hear what's going on and understand. I think hiring Mr. Bill Rue for $50,000 is a misuse of taxpayers' money. It sounds like it's a very expensive babysitter to me. And you've shown that you can work together without him, so I think paying him $50,000 is ridiculous. And why was this not open to other people? Why was he just the only person that was considered? What expertise does he have that other people may not have because he didn't show it for 17 years? He's going to get $50,000 to babysit and to go to some meetings. You all have gone to meetings a lot more than he's going to be going to. You don't make $50,000. Also, items F through K could have all been prevented if you had listened to the people on June 28th. There were many people that asked you not to do those things, and you did it anyway. And now you're having to revoke it. Mr. Chairman, you called Mr. Robert a liar tonight. Where are our answers from that meeting that you said we were going to have answers for? Look at yourself before you call somebody else a liar. Councilman number District 9, at the last meeting that was public, you said you were going to recommend that these come up for a revote. That didn't happen. So look at yourselves before you point fingers. That's all I have to say.
All right, we have a motion. That's on F.
Oh, okay, she spoke already?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Mr. Corey.
Thank you. There is the necessity for us to have Mr. Rue return to assist our drainage department. First and foremost, I want to remind the public that Mr. Quintmore, prior to taking office, in the very beginning of taking office, he called on Mr. Rue and asked him to come and give him some guidance and some recommendations on how to move forward with drainage. And I think that was successful. And I think it's some things that we really need to get accomplished. I wasn't on the board prior to January of 20. So I don't know what held up Mr. Rue's ability or desire to create maintenance plans and put maintenance plans into effect to keep things rolling. But I do know that for the last 20 months, we haven't really been able to put something together. And I like Ron. Ron is probably the person I admire the most in our administration. He reminds me of the same person that my dad is. Drug himself up from his bootstraps and never stopped working hard to get himself to where he is. And I commend Ron and everyone else in our parish who's done that for themselves. But we need to get something jump-started. Ron is so busy right now taking care and putting out so many fires that I think it's been shown that he doesn't have the time to sit down and put together a full maintenance schedule that we can be assured of as parishioners that we're going to be able to address all the needs throughout the parish. And bringing somebody else on board that can do that for a temporary period of time is necessary. And I was hesitant back in June on the decision of Bill Rue, but over the last couple of months, I've educated myself more on his knowledge and his ability. And I've seen that he's tried putting maintenance schedules together in the past that never got pushed forward. Possibly because administrations didn't want that to happen. I don't know. When you put politics in front of performance, those kind of things happen. And, you know, a good friend of mine told me the easiest way to get reelected is to go dig somebody's ditch. And if you've got a maintenance plan in place, you can't do that. You know, and that's why we need those. We need the plan, we need it formulated. And we got to get it going. We got to get the ball rolling. And to Ron's credit, he jumps every time somebody calls. And every time he calls, every time I contact the president contacts Ron, somebody's area is getting fixed. But that doesn't take care of the full picture. Now, if anyone that was in the audience back on June 28th wants to come forth now and say that what we've done over the last 3 months has been a waste of time, they're highly mistaken. Because back on June 28th, this board and this administration were at full odds. Administration was acting on their behalf, doing their things, leaving the board out of it. The board was getting frustrated. The only way we could catch attention, the only way we could get attention is to do the steps that we took. And we took those steps and got people together. You know, I think everybody in this room says they like a good omelet. Well, the only way you're going to get yourself a good omelet is if you break a couple of eggs. And that's what happened here. You know, and again, I see the naysayers out there nodding their heads and whatever, and that's fine. You know, if you guys think that your actions of holding up colorful signs and calling people names on Facebook and making all kind of stupid pictures about people on Facebook, if you think that's what affected the people up here, you're highly mistaken. And your egos are writing checks your butts can't cash, because that's not what happened here. No, you can sit yourself down.
You do not talk to the voters that way.
I just did. You can be as disrespectful as you want to us. I will respond. Yeah, whatever. Okay, here's the deal. No. Ma'am, you be respectful. No, I'm not finished though. I am not finished. Excuse me? Well, you're gonna bring me down?
Hey,
No. Was that a threat? Was that a threat? Oh, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But I'm not going to be threatened up here by some old guy over there, and I'm not going to be threatened by some Facebook entrepreneur over there either. Okay? No, I am not finished.
Hold on.
This is 3 months that I've been dealing with this garbage.
18 months we've been dealing with it.
Well, you know what? I'm pretty sure people of your family have been dealing with it for a lot of years too. Okay?
Corey, this whole time. Mr. Melanson.
All right.
Whatever. Here's the deal. What we did was necessary to fix the problems. And I believe that after talking to Mr. Quintmore and talking to members of this board, the problems are going to get fixed. If you're not satisfied, that's fine. Use your voting powers and vote however you want to vote. That's perfectly fine. But don't think for 1 second that your stupidity on the internet is oddly affecting.
Come on.
Hey, shut up. What? Shut up. I am not shutting up.
Hey.
Corey, you are not going to challenge me like that.
Corey. Calling the recess. Calling a recess.
Recess.
Actually, Chase, you were before me. I don't want to cheat.
Oh,
I'm just.
I had him up.
Are we back on air? Is John good? Okay.
Mr. Malonzo,
Okay.
I got him on.
All right. Thank you. Sorry, a little clip my head here. Oh, item L. Two comments. To kind of piggyback what Dow was saying, I would like to see us discuss inserting a mechanism in there on how we would call upon the liaison. Who would make that call? Is that done at monthly meetings, or maybe that's like a chair and a vice chair decision? Because I have mixed emotions about hiring the liaison, but I can tell you, so almost every drainage meeting that administration has on projects, Chairman Lambert and I are CC'd and invited all the time, and I can tell you that as busy as both of us are with full-time jobs and all, I use roughly 30% of my PTO at my place of employment to attend half of these meetings. So I mean, I'm at a point to where we need somebody there who's gathering the information and properly distributing that to us. So I definitely see the need for it. But I would like us to discuss the trigger process. What would trigger, hey, we need or liaison at this meeting with administration tomorrow or Thursday or something like that. So I would like to see that discussion had amongst this commission. And that's it. I'm good, Chair.
Okay. Mr. Aaron.
I do understand exactly what Councilman Waxback and Councilman Melanson were saying. Also understand most of what Councilman Ogeron was saying. In a way, I'd like to see us do what we did with the agreement before, is we move this forward with the amendment, because a maintenance plan, to me, we have been waiting for years, not 20 months, for 4 or 5 years to have a maintenance plan, and we hear the public all the time. When is our ditch getting clean? When are we going to do this? Why are we waiting? That's my concern. We have this maintenance plan is where we're going to look at our pumping stations, look at Bayou Manchac where Muddy Creek leads into it, and you start working back on Muddy Creek. You start working back on Henderson Bayou. So we're getting water out of our neighborhoods to these pumping stations. And if we're going to delay again a maintenance plan, something that we have been waiting on for years, I just don't think that's our job. We can pass this the way it is and then come up with a mechanism to determine when we're going to call them on Mr. Rue. Because despite what some people in the public say, I don't think they have a very good understanding all the time of the good that Mr. Rue has done and the knowledge that he has. And I know the administration has called upon him already because they respect his knowledge in this. And it would be very useful to have him at meetings, because I know I certainly can't, beat all those meetings that you two are at, and I'd like to have more information on it. So I would move that we pass it with the amendment, and we can revisit this at the next meeting to determine how we want to call on Mr. Rue to attend these meetings, because I just don't see that we can wait for a master maintenance plan, I think it's too important.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Mr. Dow.
Yeah, I'll just make one more comment, and then if y'all want to vote, we could vote or we can defer it. But, yeah, I mean, I think because this one fell so late, I think November 8th is 3 weeks away. I don't think we're waiting that long. We're still working on getting trees out of drainage. We're still working on clearing our waterways. I don't think we're going to defer this maintenance plan that much if we just wait 3 weeks. And that way we come back and maybe this liaison position is more robust, it has more deliverables and things like that. But that's my last comment. I don't have any other comments.
Mr. Mike?
Yeah, I think, kind of piggyback on what Dow said, I kind of like that. Plus, I would like to know I guess not the difference, but like what is the liaison going to do that the drainage director cannot do? like the drainage director can come up with a maintenance plan. The drainage director can provide us with all this information. And this is going to be a party a person that's going to be hired by administration, approved by us. So I feel like we're going to have two people kind of doing similar tasks. I mean, I know the drainage director is going to be doing a lot more, but I just think that this could fall under that person's job responsibilities as well, because they're going to come and present monthly, right, to all the drainage meetings. Am I understanding that correct? The drainage director? Yeah. So I feel like that all can be looped into one person. Plus, we're going to be paying this drainage director between 130 and 210. I feel like they could probably do some reports and come up with a maintenance plan. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Mr. Aaron.
I would just say and understand that, but we are probably 6 months or more away from hiring somebody for that position. That means we are 6 months away from a maintenance plan on getting our waterways cleaned and cleared on a path. This is not something we're just going to do willy-nilly. The idea is that we start on one end and we have the 5 to 7 year plan, and then we have the opportunity, if we don't like that it's 5 to 7, we want 4 to 6 or 3 to 5, we can go out and hire more crews to make it a 3 to 5 year plan. I just hate that we continually push this down the road. Look, I can wait for November 8th. I have no problem with that. But to wait 6 more months, that's 6 months of work on getting our waterways cleaned and having a path forward on that. And that's why I'd like to, I've spoken with Mr. Rue. He thinks he can do it with probably less than 3 months is what he has told me, which I think is fantastic. And like I said, if we get it and we realize we want to do this faster, we have the authority to say, okay, go out and hire more crews and make it a 3 to 5 year plan. Or if we're happy with the pace that they're going, we can live with it. But it's something I really think this parish needs, and we've had it in the past. It was just decimated by pulling crews off to do political things. And we're trying to get away from that. When you have a maintenance plan, and in the past they would pull people off and say, hey, go help so-and-so, they're my friend. Go help so-and-so, they're my friend. Your maintenance plan falls apart. And that's what we're trying to avoid here.
We have a motion and a second on Mr. Rue's contract.
Well, I'll second, I think, Mr. Councilman Wagusback's motion to defer until November 8th. I'll second that.
Okay, so we voting on the substitute motion first. Any objection? Any objection? No. One objection. Ms. Liz?
So is this to defer, right? Yeah. Just making sure.
Mr.
So the purpose of the deferment is to flesh this role out? Because we had a very solid agreement that this is something we knew we needed and that we would do. So I'm asking all of you to commit that this is to flesh this role out. I've had conversations with the administration. They know that they can utilize the institutional knowledge that Mr. Rue brings to this parish. I do think that it's very unfortunate that Mr. Rue nor this board had a great publicist for many years. And so people, particularly people new to the parish, have no idea the magnitude and scope of projects that were done in Ascension Parish over the last 25 years. It's unbelievable. And Mr. Rue's fingerprints are on almost every one of those. There are certainly things he could not get done. But our hope is that with his institutional knowledge and with if he can get us through this next 6 months, hopefully we can have someone hired who can then be educated with and by him, and then those of the other members of the staff of the drainage department, and then his role will no longer be needed for us. Hopefully we'll have found our way forward. So I'm going to be able to support that deferment as long as it's understood that it is to put meat on the bones of his role and make sure we have that very clear. And I'd like to work with the administration to also in the process of doing that, so that the administration and this board agrees that this is his role. And I believe that we have had that commitment for the last many weeks. So, thank you.
Anything you want to add, Mr. President?
No, there are some things about the maintenance thing we need to flesh out, because as you get a drainage director coming in 6 months, and then we have one in place for 3 months. If the drainage director, who we hired to be instrumental in over the employees and direction, there's a little bit of confusion there. But this is about communication. This is about meetings. This is about y'all having the information that y'all need to make the decisions you need to make. It is worth $50,000 for us all to work together. And that's just, with the budget we have, the amount of projects we got going on, his institutional knowledge, this can work. And it's going to work. We just got to flesh out some details. That's all. And it's going to work. And so I'm in full support of it. It's going to be beneficial for our communication altogether. It's going to be beneficial for his institutional knowledge. And so this is a year-to-year contract. When y'all feel that he's no longer of value, then we don't have to renew the contract. But this is needed right now, and it's going to benefit all of us. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the substitute motion. Any objection? Roll call, I'm sorry. Ms.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forget we have all this electronic business.
Motion passed. We'll have this on the first drainage meeting in November. Okay, M, approval of professional service, a contract between East Ascension Drainage
Motion.
and SSA Consultant. Moved by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Aaron. Discussion? Any opposition?
Motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go into executive session by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Michael. We're in executive session. Motion to reconvene by Mr. Johnny,
Second.
second by Mr. Chase.
All right, I'd like to make a motion for legal to settle with the landowner and any, what was it? I don't forget, interest,
Yes, reasonable cost.
reasonable cost.
I'll second that.
Moved by Mr. Aaron. Second by Mr. Michael.
No, moved by me, second
Mo-
by Aaron.
I'm sorry.
There you go. Close enough.
Any opposition? None? Motion passed.
Motion to enter executive session, second.
Remember to vote.
Everybody vote?
Executive session.
motion to go into executive session. Second. Got to vote.
Vote, everybody vote, yeah.
Motion reconvened by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Michael. Mr. Michael, you have some discussion?
A motion that if the current party does not agree to the contract by Thursday at 4:30 PM, that we move on to the next highest bid.
Motion second by Ms. Terry. Discussion? None. Motion passed. Motion adjourned by Mr. Michael, second by Ms. Johnson. We adjourn.